visibility into what information they have access to, the lingo and terminology of that particular business or that particular company. A lot of companies name their servers special names, like maybe their CRM server, customer relations management, might be called a particular name. If an attacker obtains that name prior to the attack, they sound much more credible. New hires. New hires are the low-hanging fruit. Why? Because they don't recognize people in the organization by voice. They're new, they're likely on probation, they want to show everybody they want to do a good job, so they're the best targets. Telecommuters as well, right? Because they remotely access the organization. Think about this. People think, they want to keep the organization or the company secure, but they don't think about it as spokes in a wheel. So if I'm an attacker and I really want to get into an organization, why limit it to trying to break into the company core? Why not look to the people that are connecting it? Right? Imagine you go into a company, you get their license plates, you find out their addresses, maybe they're listed, you drive by their homes, they're running wireless networks that are using web or no encryption at all. You gain access to their wireless network, you do a cross-site request forgery attack, now you're into their PC. When they VPN into the corporate network, well, the hacker's with them. And people don't think about that. They think about the core. You have to think about the spokes, everything coming into the core. That's not really social engineering, but it's important to know. Personal reconnaissance. Where do you go when you want to find out about people? Well, monster.com, people post their resumes, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, a lot of information out there. A social engineer also wants to obtain information about a person's hobbies and interests. Why? Because when they're doing the attack, one of the ways, the techniques of influence, is if you can get a person to like you and develop a rapport, it's much more likely they will do what you are requesting. So for example, if you could find out that the target is a soccer fan, and during a telephone call, you start bringing up the subject of soccer and you develop this camaraderie, then the attacker asks the person for a request. And if you have that rapport, there's a much higher likelihood that the victim will comply. It's amazing what people post in news groups. Especially companies like IT people that are developing code, they'll actually, from their email addresses, will post questions about technical problems they're having. Well, that's the first place an attacker is going to look, because then you know their architecture, the software, and who is using it. Dumpster diving. It's a dirty job, but somebody else can do it. Dumpster diving is simply looking in the trash for information. This is a telephone company directory of a phone company called Verizon in the United States. And I found this book in the 1980s in the trash. And this was a hacker's gold mine. Why? Because it listed the name of everybody that works in the company, their address, their email address, and the whole corporate structure. So I can know who their bosses is. And I see all the members of the team. So a person armed with this information could pose as anybody in this book and get access to information. When I was 17 years old, I was dumpster diving at a phone company called Pacific Bell in Los Angeles. Well, let me stop here for a moment. Let me give you some tips in case you guys decide to go on dumpster dives. If you pull out a trash bag out of a can, I assume they're the same here as in the United States, I don't know. And you shake the bag, and it sounds like liquid, or feels like it, put it aside. You want to skip that bag. Or, second tip, if you look in the bag or tear the bag, there's paper towels, aside. You want the smaller trash bags that are usually next to people's cubicles or in their offices. So in Los Angeles, my friends and I was 17 years old. We're dumpster diving and I find that somebody has taken a document, some paper, and ripped it up into teeny bitty pieces that look like confetti. And mind you, we're 17 years old and have a lot of time on our hands. So, a couple friends and I took this over to a coffee shop, and over about 3 hours, we put the puzzle together. What was it? The entire username and password list to one of the phone company's most sensitive computer systems. They gave us control to create phone numbers, for example. Moral of the story, don't do it by hand. You might want to use a cross shredder. United States Marshal Service. They handle a program called the Witness Protection Program. So if you decide to snitch on somebody that's with the mafia, they might want to put you under this program so they don't kill you later. So one of the geniuses of the IT department of the U.S. Marshal Service, I guess they got an increased budget to get newer machines, newer computers. One of the geniuses says, oh, just delete the information on those hard drives, delete. And they auction them off because it's the government. You know, they want to get every dime back as possible. Of course, the person that acquired the machines through a hard disk recovery, what did they obtain? A partial list of the people under the Witness Protection Program. Their real name and their new identities. Sure glad I was never under that program. But it's not just in the United States. I was teaching a class in Costa Rica, and it was a workshop. And we actually went out to the technology area where all the technology companies were, like Microsoft and HP and whomever, and the trash cans were in a public location. So we wanted to see what we would find. And, you know, I was kind of curious in a foreign country. So they said, yeah, for Usuario and Clave. And we were looking for like 30 minutes. They say, hey, here's a list. It turned out that one of the companies, one of the respected brands, actually threw out a list of username and passwords in their trash. And this was in Costa Rica. So it does happen in Central and South America, I'm sure. In every social engineering attack, there's certain properties. In every attack, the bad guy establishes an identity and a role, who they're going to be for the attack. The more challenging factor is the situation, the story. What excuse or story or situation they're going to create that's plausible to gain compliance. The third factor is building the target's trust and confidence that you are who you claim to be and you're authorized. The attacker also wants to build rapport through influence tactics, such as liking that I explained to you. And this is in one case where an attacker is preparing for the attack. Don't forget, people are going to make objections, especially when you're asking them to do sensitive things. So the attacker, before the actual call, will actually prepare answers to overcome those objections. So it's actually a very prepared attack. Let's say that the victim is not going for it. They're not gullible. They don't believe what you're saying. The attacker wants to back out of that situation. It's called not burning the source, is the terminology. And what that means